Hey, y'all.
Hey.
We're back.
Haha.
A thousand eyes in one brings you
Wine on
wine
an
on
empty
an
stomach.
empty stomach.
We missed
Today,
you.
we did miss you. It's been a while. It's
We
been a
miss
while.
books.
Today, we're talking about Dawn from the Lilith's Brood also, trilogy, also known as Xenogenesis. Uh,
I meant to look up why they rebranded it, and I forgot. Like, why
maybe,
did they stop calling it that? Did it
maybe
just
nobody
feel
knew what Xenogenesis meant.
maybe?
Maybe.
I feel like Lilith's Brood is an oversimplification, but also very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, how do you want
Shout
to
out to our
start?
new hair.
My own
Sorry.
collie hair. All right,
Yeah.
let's get into Dawn.
So Octavia Butler, master of sci-fi. Dawn is a story that I guess like to give a very like brief overview. Imagine a world in which the humans succeeded in almost destroying the race and the world. Basically, they destroyed Earth, and the Oankali came through. They rescued whoever was left because we find out that they're just like irresistibly attracted to the shit show that is humanity. Um, and they saved the earth, and now they want to put people back eventually to help repopulate it. And yeah, they have one star player in mind, and her name is Lilith Iapo.
Lilith Iapo, so she's 26 years old. She wakes up in this empty room naked
Again.
and no again and still has no idea what's going on. We know that the
Yeah.
people who captured her ask her questions when they wake her up, and she either doesn't answer or she lies, and she learns very quickly that they're extremely stubborn and patient.
Patient.
So
I
very
think
patient.
then one of the coolest things about this book is like the opening sentences. It's like alive again and still, she's just like,
Yeah.
wait a second, I've done this before. And we find out that that she's been abducted by aliens. um and she's not the only one, but she's one of the few English speakers who never asks or believes that she could possibly have been abducted. And this is not the first time that she's been awake. She's been
No.
awakened on several occasions, sometimes with new scars.
Yes, that's actually really important. She wakes up with a
Mhm.
scar on her abdomen and, of course, doesn't know why. At one point, we meet a little boy named Sharad, because she wakes up to him in her room. I found that to be a little bit cruel to give
Yeah.
her Sharad and then to take him away the way they did,
Hmm.
um, because they really let her bond with him
Hmm.
and start to really care for him.
And I think what you have to understand is that she wakes up every time in isolation. So
Yes.
every time she wakes up, she's completely alone. And then one of the times when she wakes up, there's this little boy there, and they're terrified of each other because they both don't know what's going on. And they quickly, find the yearning for human connection to overpower any fear that they have. And they
Hmm.
take to each other and start to teach each other their languages and how to communicate. And then one day she wakes up and he's gone.
He's gone, and yeah, I thought that was actually really sad because she's been alone for so long, and to finally see another human, and then for it to be a child, because you have to go through the feelings of loneliness but also worry. You're wondering what
Hmm.
happened to this little kid.
Loneliness and loss, and then having it reopen old wounds because she'd already
Hmm.
lost a child and a
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah.
Whew,
In a car accident.
man, in a car accident.
So on one of the awakenings, we finally meet the captor, an Owen Kali, as they call themselves, named Jediah. Well, his name's a lot
Jediah.
longer than that, but it's shortened to Jediah. Um, they're
Oh,
hideous.
I wrote down her whole name.
Okay.
Hold on, let me see if my iPad will turn to the page where they have the whole thing. Okay. Do call tending Jediah Lilith Ika Kaika Ajdinso.
Yeah, that's a lot of name.
It's almost very German in the way how it's specific it is, but That's
Mm.
another story. They like denote every single part of what it is that she is, like family indicators, tribe, and well, I guess we didn't call them tribes, but like the different groups that of Oankali that there are, and what her role is.
Hmm.
Whew. Yeah.
As an
Yes.
adopted person, adopted
Hmm.
child in a way,
An
we'll find
adopted
out
child.
later.
She's the Ika,
So Jediah is hideous, right? He's hideous.
covered
He
with
has
tentacles,
covered with, oh, I get chills just thinking about how
gray and
gross that
covered with
must be.
tentacles, and she
But
likened him
humanoid,
to a humanoid.
because when
Yes,
she
because he
first
walks with
sees
two
him,
arms.
yeah, when she first sees him, she thinks there's a man in the room or something, somebody
Mhm.
sounding androgynous. She says the voice sounds androgynous, and so she thinks there's another human in the room, and it's almost as if her brain won't let her believe that what she's seeing is not a human when he's still kind of in the shadows. Like it's clearly not. She, well, first, what does she
Mhm.
say? She thinks it's a human with locks, right?
Yeah,
And then she starts to see that it's tentacles, but it's not like her brain's just like, nope, not doing
not
this.
registering. And
Yeah,
I think that they counted on that too. I think that they're very smart in sending him in the room because your brain tends to group things, right, and try to make sense of
right.
it. Like, okay, this is kind of familiar. I'm going to make this shape. It's like you see stuff in the clouds, right? I'm going to
Hmm.
make this shape something that I'm comfortable with. And
Hmm.
then she begins to actually see him. She likened him to like this kind of sea slug, which I will admit I was too shook to Google.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna do it either.
I was like, I really want to know what it looks like, but you know what? No, I'll pass.
I'm just
It,
not a fan of tentacles.
yeah,
And boy,
yeah.
do we get tentacles in this story.
Hmm.
What else do we learn about Lilith? That we find out the scar in her abdomen. She
Hmm.
had cancer. Was it ovarian, I think?
I can't remember which kind of cancer it was, but it's some. It may have been ovarian. I don't think they said specifically one, but it was one that all the women her family had also
Hmm.
succumbed to. And we find out that about the Onkali is that you know their driving force, their mission in life is genetic exchange.
Hmm.
That's what's propelling them. They want to reproduce. They want new information to kind of like improve and to go out and put themselves in the world. So when they discovered her cancer, not only that she had cancer, but that she had a talent for cancer,
Hmm.
they were fascinated with it because cancer cells, what do? They reproduce. They can make, they generate and make new things, and that's a skill, quote unquote, skill that they hadn't
Yeah,
encountered before.
they think it's
So for them,
beautiful.
it's very useful. Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, they changed her genes to prevent her from getting cancer again.
And the explanation for the war on Earth that kind of ended everything is that humans have a flaw, and that flaw is intelligence combined with hierarchy.
Hmm.
So it seems like the Uloi don't have any kind of hierarchy. Although it often feels, we'll meet him later, but it often feels
Yeah,
like Kagayat's in charge.
yeah. It does always seem like the Ule is the one who's running the show, but yeah, they don't have that. They're like, we find out later that when they're making important decisions, that there has to be a consensus. One person doesn't just get to decide. They have to decide as a species whether or not something is allowed to happen.
Mhm.
And humans don't do that.
No, we do not. No, we do not. What would you do if you woke up in a room
Scream a lot.
butt
Scream a
naked?
lot. Well, I mean, the second time that when she woke up that time, she found out they had clothes for her, and she was super relieved. But then I think I would have been freaked out by the fact that it was like they said it was like a Velcro-ish material, but not Velcro. Like basically, she put it on, it sealed itself to fit her. I would be
Mhm.
like, oh shit, that's cool, but what is this?
And also, there's no seam. There are no seams in the walls.
Mm-mm.
She tries to find ways out, and then
Yeah,
the that's kind of freaky.
yeah.
Seeing
It's
a
just
room
like
that
she's
just
in a
kind of opens
room, but
up.
it's not like, can you really call it a room? She's like in an enclosed space with no
Right.
walls, no visible seams, no doors, no lights, no ventilation. And she's until Jediah comes in, she's just hearing voices from above that will either speak to her or not speak to her. And then and that's what learned to attribute to them is that when they don't want to answer a question, they just don't.
They just don't. And they're
If they're not ready to
extremely
answer, they
patient.
just don't. They're just like, whatever, no. So she
Because look
learned
how
to take
long.
hard silence as a no. Like this is beyond the awkward eight, right?
Yeah, and we also Jediah sits there for so long until she finally gets the courage to touch him
Mm-hmm.
because she wants they Jediah wants her to get comfortable enough so that she doesn't run outside and start screaming and trying to kill them, which is
Yeah.
exactly what I think would happen if I woke up and was in an enclosure with a tentacle monster.
I think I would throw up and faint
Yeah.
because, like, I think that there would be no way of convincing me that it wasn't probably some kind of the
Yeah.
S word type being. And by that, we mean the eight-legged S word. Um, and yeah, yeah, no, I would freak out. I'd probably just like, evacuate all bodily fluids simultaneously and then probably fall in it. uh,
Hey, AK, and hey, Jake. Thanks for joining us.
hola.
Um, all right, so moving on. She's been eating this disgusting paste,
Yeah.
right? And it
Well, it's
has
not really disgusting, just like very
bland.
bland.
It's just I thought of it as like unflavored, unsalted oatmeal. Like no salt, no sugar, just boiled
Mm,
oatmeal and mashed. Boiled and put in a
mm.
blender. That's
It
how I
reminded
imagined
me
it.
a little bit of the first time that I had fufu.
I've never
Just
had
kind of
fufu.
hmm, like kind of sticky and I haven't had it in a long time. And just like this very beige
Because it
substance.
picks up like the stew that you're eating it with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never actually had fufu.
We got to get some
Um,
of our friends to hook that up.
so the first part of the book is called Womb. The second part is Family.
Hmm.
I thought it was interesting that it was called Womb because I guess in a way she is waking up in like this womb-like thing and being born again and
Yeah.
all of the stuff that goes with that. It
Yeah.
makes
And it's
sense.
what's I think what was interesting is just like it's every time she wakes up, it's a jarring experience. So she's very much being bored. Like it's not pain free. We find out later it's just like all of her senses returning to herself at the same time, like when she gets her hands stuck in what the carnivorous plant essentially that the Ulai have altered to, we find out, contain all the people that they've rescued from
Yeah.
Earth. um yeah, so it's a very jarring experience. But yeah, she met Jediah and he was like, listen, you can leave this room. I will take you out of here. But first you have to be able to tolerate looking at me. And he's just literally so alien that she can't. She can't. He gets closer to her, she freaks out. She wants to touch him, but she doesn't know if she can really do it until finally she does. And I think that uh she does a really good job of just describing the terror, but also curiosity and anger that
Hmm.
comes from realizing that you have been asleep or locked up or just like they're, let's call it, a prisoner, but a guest on their ship
Yeah.
for
Prisoner.
250 years.
250 years. I had a hard time trying to visualize what the Oankali look like.
Me too, and I don't want to. I stopped. I was like, okay, like tenta. Oh, you know remember in Pirates of the Caribbean?
Oh yeah, the tentacle face guy.
Yeah, but like
I
all
guess.
over. See, no matter how you shake it, it doesn't. Tanya and I talked about, because I think I found out in like 2017, Ava DuVernay was working on a TV adaptation of Dawn, um, and obviously we haven't seen it yet. But we were talking about like how would this look? How do you do this? Is it a live action? Is it animation? Is there a combination of it? Because how do you make them so that you can watch it and not be too terrifying? Because I'm totally having
Yeah.
nightmares after this.
Well, Lilith gets to leave the room and she meets her new family.
Yes, Davy
Well,
Jones. Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
She meets a family, not her family yet. These are Jediah and his wife Tadine, his Uloi, which is like the third mate, Kagayat, and their child Nikanj.
Nikanj.
Some of the things we learn are that the Oankali, unless they're very elderly or a child that doesn't know what to do, can't be poisoned. And it comes up again later when she disposes of her orange peels in the wrong neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And Kagayat accuses her of finding something to poison because she's very interested. Because she asks about the food paste, and they
Mm-hmm.
tell her that they had to alter their food for her to be able to eat it without being poisoned. And so she, obviously she's really surprised that their food
Because
could
they're eating
poison her.
human food too, because she sees
Right.
them eating stuff that she's familiar with, and she's like, "But you can eat our food." And he's like, "Yeah, no problem." Or it's
He's
like,
like, yeah,
"Yeah,
we
no
got that.
problem." Yeah.
I'd like that skill.
Um, I think that was something we have to oh shit we haven't mentioned yet is that they're on a ship and the ship is alive.
Yeah,
They're on a living
they're on a
ship.
living ship, which in
And
itself is like my mind can't wrap around a lot of these
Mhm.
things in the story. My brain is just rejects and cannot make it make sense, which is how I imagine Lilith and the others that she awakens, how
Mhm.
they feel. Like your brain is just like, nope, this isn't true.
That's how is that possible?
How is it
What do you
possible?
mean
It
what
makes
do you
no
mean the ship
sense.
is alive? What do you mean the ship is providing everything we need? What do you mean the ship is, you know, these walls that are coming up and down or these doors that are opening? Like this is a
And even
biological
the
chemical process that's happening.
even the food that are made from prints of what they call
Mhm.
prints of food from Earth that aren't
Yeah.
exact, that aren't clones really. They just memorize the genome and
Mhm.
recreate it. Even that, my brain is like, huh?
Yeah, and not just living things, but just like everything. Everything
Everything.
from Earth that they memorized, they figured it. It's like they made a cast of it.
Yeah.
Cast. And they're able to reproduce them at will. Like everything from like an orange to a pen. So
Um,
fascinating. I think we should talk about also just that the fact that there are different groups. Lilith is with a group called the Dinso, and they're all the Oankali who are going to go back to Earth and help repopulate and genetically modify their offspring going forward so that they can live on the planet. There's a Toat, which are the ones who are going to stay on the ship, and there's a Akjai who are growing a new ship and will be leaving to explore other parts of the galaxy. And so yeah, Lilith got put in with the people who were going to repopulate the Earth. Ooh, fun fact I learned about the name Lilith because I didn't know that Lilith because I was listening to podcasts we were talking about like name origins, and Lilith apparently is a name for because there's a discrepancy in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, and Lilith is the name of Adam's first wife,
mhm.
not Eve. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, she's also the mother of the succubi, but whatever.
Get
Um,
into Look it up.
yeah, we're
We
not going
only
to get
have an
into
hour.
that.
We can't get into all of that, but
See my shirt. um, yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting origin thing. But yeah, so Lilith gets she gets to kind of live in with their with this initial family, which Adaya's family and Kagayat's um let's call him his crew. And she learns that soon she will be paired with Nikanj, who is their child.
mhm.
And he's going to be the one who kind of like they're given to each other and they have to learn and teach each other about each ways. Like at first he doesn't really speak English, so she teaches him how to speak English and he teaches her how to speak the Oankali language, although she's not really having much success with it
Because
because
they
they won't
won't
let
let
her
her
write
write.
anything down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. They don't want to let humans read or write because I guess that, gives them power when you think, because it immediately made me think of like slaves not being allowed to read
Hmm.
or write, enslaved people
Well, I
not
think
being allowed
also
to read
that
or
they
write.
just don't want anything. It's like people, I think they recognize the human tendency to accept anything in writing as fact, right?
Mm.
Or can canon to be like, okay, if this is written down, then this is the way it should be. When they're trying to give them a fresh start on Earth, um, although they do eventually let her read because she's bored and waiting for
Well,
months.
they also feel bad because we have Paul Titus. Paul Titus was picked up at 14. Yeah, he's
Hate
picked
him.
up at 14 and he's been living with them. Now he's a grown man.
Hmm.
And he's been living without seeing another human. And they introduce them to each other in the hopes that they'll be friends. But also, Paul has been told that he's never
He's
had
gonna get
sex
his dick
before.
wet.
Yeah, he's never had sex before. And they basically prepared him by telling him that he can do it with her. And so, he immediately jumps into action. And when she rejects him, he tries to rape her, and he beats her really
Yeah.
badly.
Yeah.
He almost kills her. And that part of it was also really insane. You know,
Yeah,
this
it's because
idea
she
of
goes there thinking that she hasn't seen another human. She's heard of the what this one called Fukumoto. She
right.
saw Sherrod like asleep in the plant, but Paul Titus is the first living, breathing human that she's actually met on the ship, and it does not go how she expected it to be. But also, I mean, I think looking at it, it's like you would almost. I would guess I wasn't really surprised that that's how it went, considering that he'd been deprived of human contact and he'd been awake for like how long?
I
I
think
think
he
like
around I think he had said he was older than her by this point. So
yeah,
like
because he'd been
15
awake much
years,
longer. Yeah.
like around 15 years or so. Um it's 15 years, no human contact, you know, and I have never, because he was so young, had never experienced adult relations at
Hmm.
all. And then growing up not having contact with humans, he doesn't get any of like the social skills, which
And it's
that
I
that
no, go
also
ahead.
I thought was really cruel. And I get that the Oankali aren't trying to be cruel, but they are cruel.
Hmm. It's like they don't realize how important that social contact is and
Hmm.
how many things you learn by being able to be around other people. Um, I think it's really like they keep insisting that he's with his family, not understanding that family means like the way that their family structure and the way that it works is not necessarily very different from how a human would identify with their family, but it's not the same. You need to, we see this all the time. You need representation. You need to be able to see yourself. They can't, and Owen and an Ulai can't teach Paul Titus how to be a man and like the rules of social contact and the respect and restraint that comes with interactions between a male and a female.
Putting them together like that in the hopes that they'd not even reproduce, share
Mhm.
sex, as they said, again, is so fucked up on their end because they're treating these humans. I get that the humans blew up
Jake,
their own
sorry.
world. Hmm?
Jake. Both of those
I'll
comments,
highlight
yeah.
his. I'll highlight Jake's comment. Oops, that was the wrong one. I never knew how much people annoyed me until I spent time with them. And also this, they sound like how humans act with what we think of as lesser beings. Exactly.
Mhm.
They know that the humans are intelligent and intelligent enough to have war and destroy their own world, but they think of
Yeah.
them as pets, almost like pets or like children, but more
Yeah.
like pets, because you don't put your child in a room with somebody else in the hopes that maybe they'll have sex
Yeah.
and just,
And and she likens it to that several times. She's like, "Well, this is how we treat our animals. This is
mhm,
how we treat animals that we're breeding together. We stick them, we confine them in an area, and we hope that they take an interest in each other and then reproduce, so we can use them for work or eat them."
right. And Nakanj apparently told them that he didn't think that that was going to work out.
Hmm.
And they didn't listen to him because he's a child Uloy.
I
But
think
he,
what's really interesting. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was going to say he was just that he was right, that it
I
wasn't
think
going to work out.
it was also really interesting to hear Paul Titus, because he has been awake longer. He knows what the end game is for them, right?
Hmm.
What Paul Titus is, he's a human who has agreed to stay on the ship. He doesn't want to go back to Earth. He doesn't want to go back to what he calls the Stone Age and have to make tools and toil in order to survive. And Lilith is like, I just want to be free. I want an opportunity to go out and live any kind of existence that's not where I'm not a captive. And he was like, yeah, but you're being kind of naive, because that's not really what's going to happen. You're not just going to go and be able to like reproduce. We find out
Right.
very soon that like they can't reproduce on their own. They need an ooloid to be able to do that, because they've essentially made their sexual reproduction between two people dormant. And
Right. They're
and
all
we
on
find
birth
out later
control. They're
they're
all
all
on
on
birth
birth
control,
control.
and eventually they're repulsed by each
They're
other's
repulsed by
touch,
each other. Mm-hmm.
which is another thing that is so fucked up. I mean, so much of this story is about lack of consent.
Mm. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. It's like when Lois goes and she gets basically she's got the task. Well, we'll go back to his metamorphosis, but she has the task of choosing 40 humans to awaken, and these are going to be the 40 people who are going to be trained just to go back to Earth. And what ends up happening is that she's very selective with who she chooses first. She chooses a woman because she doesn't want there to be sexual attention, and then she chooses women, and she's like really methodical about the type of men that she chooses to awaken. But eventually, what happens is that they start pairing off with each other, and so they're
Mhm.
pairing off with each other, and they're having sex, and then the Uloi come in and like work their Uloi magic, and suddenly people who had been living like sleeping together cannot stand this like the smell and the touch of each other. That's
Because now
devastating.
they need an ulay in order to mate, and what the ulay do you remember oh, what's that movie with Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone, where they're like in the future, he's like he's been asleep, they've both been asleep, and they wake him up because other dude wakes up and is committing crimes, and like in
Demolition
the
Man.
future. Demolition Man,
I
yes.
never saw it. It was rated R.
Oh. Well, there's a scene in Demolition Man where another cop asks Sylvester Stallone's character if he wants to go home with her and have sex. And he's like, well, yeah, because he's beautiful Sandra Bullock. And
Mm-hmm.
he's thinking like he gets ready, he's checking his breath and getting slightly undressed to kind of like get into it. And she comes back with these helmet things. And he's, he's like, what the fuck is this? And then they both put the helmets on, and suddenly he gets visions and feelings of having sex with her without ever
Mm.
touching her.
Did they
And
steal
that's,
that from this?
I don't know, but that's basically
Was
what
that
the uloi
inspiration?
do. The maybe, I don't know, but that's essentially what the uloi do, is by working with like their nerves and their sensory
Hmm.
things.
Yeah, they're able to tap into their brains and stimulate their pleasure centers and
Right,
give them all the feelings and sensations of having sex, but
without
not
them
actually
touching each
touching it.
other. And with
I'm laughing because of the part where Joseph is like, "Is this addictive? Is this a drug?" Because
because
if you
he's
bottle this up and sold it, like everybody would want this.
I mean, at one point, what does Nikon say? I've never heard you scream.
Mm,
Like she just had the best sex of her life without touching anyone. But
yeah,
even that, again, you get back to the idea of consent, because she doesn't know that this means she's going to be repulsed by Joe's touch.
no,
And she didn't want that. And that's
yeah,
another thing that the Ulai don't understand, is that humans thrive on touch.
they need it.
We need to be touched and hugged, and you know what I mean? Like just feel the presence of each other. And they take that away from them. I get like the birth control, but even that, there's no consent again. So they can't have children without an uloi.
Hmm.
Although they do say the touch part wears off over time, but once they're away from the Oankali, but they still can't have children without an uloi. And
Hmm.
humans aren't used to three-person, for the most part, aren't used to three-person relationships. There are some, but but they don't require the third to make a baby if they want to make a
Right.
baby. And so the choice of one being repulsed by their mates, and then also not being able to decide when you want to have a child, the Oankali have once again taken away their consent,
Yeah.
and have then they've done it as like benefactors of some sort, when in
Yeah.
reality it's like they're just animals. They're treated
Hmm.
like animals.
And thus arises the conflicts of the subsequent books, right? It's like,
Hmm.
they find out that they can't have children, and you can imagine how troubling that is. But I guess
Yeah.
let's back up and we'll talk
Okay.
about Nikanj.
Okay.
So yeah. So Nikanj, when he's still a child when Lilith meets him, and he grows up, and she finds out soon that he's going to go through a metamorphosis because he doesn't have what they call sensory arms. Of course, he'll have like 4 arms instead of two, and he tells her that she's going to need to help him do that because, and she's going to be one of the only ones. So when they go through their metamorphosis, it's got to be they have to be with their same sex parent, which in this case would be Kagaya, who's also uh, he was also an Uloi. But Lilith will also be there because she won't be arousing to him, because basically he's going to go through a stage of raging hormones, and his mates will just be torment to him because he won't be
Puberty.
able to do anything. Exactly.
It's like puberty on steroids.
And you feel so bad for him because, basically what happens is he passes out for a bunch of months and is just barely registering. But it's interesting also be that Kagaya is always is telling Lilith that just because he's asleep doesn't mean that he won't remember this, right? Like
Mm.
he's still sensing the way that he could. It's being recorded, and he'll be able to access these memories later. Which before he goes to sleep is a gift, a skill, I guess that give that he gives to Lilith.
They
It's so
managed to
true.
make puberty worse. That is
Yeah.
absolutely true.
Hmm.
It's like puberty, but like you can smell each other's pheromones even more than I assume we on a lower level probably do.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's like you're already just like this horny monster when you're going through puberty and you're not understanding your body and all those things, and to
Hmm.
to make it so that you literally can't even be around other sex.
God.
Can you imagine what that would have been like in like 7th grade or like 6th
No,
grade, where
no.
like you
And I
literally
can't.
can't even be in a room with boys because it'll
Uh,
drive you insane?
no. And it's like it makes me think that it's a good thing that doesn't happen in humans because it would be
Yeah.
very dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, there'd probably be a ton of rapes.
Yeah, it's like when cats go into heat or dogs go into heat, and like
Mhm.
they can be smelled by members of the opposite sex for miles, and you have to keep your animals inside during that time because they will get raped.
And it's basically you get a bunch of Paul Tituses.
Hmm. Oh man.
Man, oh man.
Man, oh man. But what I thought that was really sweet is that, or I guess yeah, sweet is that Kagaya, like Lilith and him, and Lilith and it, the Uloi, they clash from the second that they meet. She can't stand him, he can't stand her. And I think it reveals itself to be that he's being very overprotective of his child because he understands that she's the one who's going to have to guide him through the metamorphosis. And once he sees that she's willing to take care of him and protect him, he starts to it starts to open up, and then and then and share more information about their culture, about their physiology, about their history. And then he says something to her. It's I keep misgendering. It says something to her about the fact that it thought that the first person to parent this group of people who are going to go back to Earth should be a man, but it realizes now that it was wrong. It was wrong, and that she will be the perfect person for this.
What's funny about you misgendering the Uloi? So the Uloi are the third sex, is male, female Uloi.
Hmm.
One of the things Paul Titus said was that even though the Uloi are its own gender, Uloi, he
Hmm.
can't help but thinking of them as male. And
Yeah.
what's funny is reading it, I also kept thinking of Nikanj and Kagayat as male. Like I kept forgetting that they're not male or female, but like something about them was coming off male, which is interesting because
Hmm.
we know now that there are people who are gender fluid or non-gender.
Hmm.
Um, and we not we as in the collective, but like we have accepted that that's a thing. Like there are people
Yeah.
who are neither gender. Yet reading it, like Paul Titus, I kept thinking of Kagayat as like an old man.
Mm. I'm trying to think if I went one way or the other reading. Um, I think it was giving me more bossy woman.
That's interesting.
um, yeah.
And one of the things, because of this, the men that are uh, mating with the help of a uloi, they feel like it's kind of gay
Mm-hmm.
because they also think of the uloi as men instead of
Yeah.
thinking of them like they don't think this is like a threesome with like
Yeah.
two hot chicks. Like it's they think that they're being assaulted by a man,
Assaulted and manipulated and emasculated
emasculated.
because
Yes,
they're not able to penetrate, and somehow that takes away
and in a way,
their,
the
you
uloi
know.
penetrates them with its
Hmm.
tentacles and the stingers. I mean, it's like in their neck, but
Yeah.
still. And I mean, we're socialized that way. That somebody putting something in a man that's got to be gay.
Yeah.
Even if it's done by a woman, it's somehow still gay. Which
Yeah.
you know, that's its own.
That's a whole thing. Yeah. We won't touch it, but we acknowledge that it exists.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
thing.
It's a thing. Yeah, so we could skip ahead again to the selection process.
Yes, go
Whew.
ahead.
So Lilith, they Octavia Butler kind of skips, she kind of like does a time jump. They basically Nikanj goes to its metamorphosis, becomes an Ulay, and after that time, Lilith is given superior strength. She's sent to the training floor where she's taught how to live on a model of Earth. They teach her all the skills that she's going to need,
They
and
give her an eidetic memory too.
so she learns, basically she sees it one time and she knows how to do it.
Hmm.
This is one of the things that Nikanj helped her with before he went into his metamorphosis, because she realizes one day after speaking to him that she can understand everything that he's saying
Hmm.
and remembers everything. She's able to like just instantly recall everything. So they spend a year training her, and after that they give her 80 dossiers, boom, with men and women, and say you have to choose 40 of them before you're allowed to leave this room. These are the 40 people you're going to be training with to go back to Earth. Um, and it's a disaster,
It's an
kind of.
absolute disaster. She chooses women first in the hopes that they'll be less violent, but the second woman immediately attacks her, which Lilith dispatches her with no problem because she has increased strength,
Hmm.
and she's also just always been a naturally taller
Taller,
and
bigger,
bigger
and works
woman.
out regularly.
Right, and works out. um then she starts awakening some of the men. We get Joseph, who becomes her lover, and we also
Mm.
get Kurt, I think, was the former cop, right?
Ex-cop, yep.
Yeah, Kurt is an ex-cop. She believes that he and another woman, Celine, who is a woman who just comes off as needing protection, she believes that Kurt and her
Mhm.
will bond, and they do immediately. It gives someone for him to protect, for Kurt to protect, and
Mhm.
Celine gets to have someone to lean on,
Mhm.
which is, in her nature. But it ends up being a disaster because one, they think some of them think Lilith is secretly a man
Yes, because
because
she's
of
so
her
much, so
height and
big and
because
she's
she's so
strong.
strong and she can fight.
Mhm. Mhm.
They also think she might be an Oankali because
Yep.
she can heal faster, she can
She can open the
open the
doors,
doors,
raise
um,
walls.
she can raise walls, and she can
She
speak
has all these
Oankali.
superpowers. Exactly. So, and she warned them about this. She told them, she's like, they're going to think that I'm not one of them, and that's going to
Hmm.
be a problem for
She
me.
said that
And
she'd
they're
be the
like,
Judas
you'll
goat.
be fine. Exactly. Which was a phrase I'd never heard before, or
Hmm.
this book.
You got to pay attention in vacation Bible school, Nikki.
You didn't have to go to
I'm just kidding. I did.
that.
I went every summer.
uh,
um, what was I about to say?
I think
Oh yeah,
something.
they
Mhm.
yeah they begin plotting against her, except for Joseph, who starts to believe her. They don't believe that it's a real ship, and they
They don't
start
believe.
plotting
Yeah,
against her. They think that like they're just at some facility
they don't
with
believe that
human
they've left
captors.
Earth. Yeah,
Yeah, and
which is reasonable.
it's reasonable, but no matter what she says, they just refuse to believe her because they think she's one of them. And so we
Mm-hmm.
get, with all these people awake, we get like the ugliness of humanity. We get an attempted
Oh
rape
God,
because
Lord
the
of the
men begin to,
Flies.
yeah, the men begin to feel like they're owed a woman, and so one of them wakes up and they try to drag a woman to the room to rape her because they're like it's her duty to
Yeah.
pleasure them.
Everybody
And
pairs off. That's what Kurt's like. Everybody pairs off. And then who's it? Jean, one of the troublemaker, that fucking bitch. Just like, why are you saving yourself? You're gonna pair off with somebody anyway. Like, oh no. No,
right,
no, no, no.
right,
Lilith quickly disabuses themselves of the notion that they're gonna be able to do whatever the fuck
by
they want on
beating
our
their
watch.
asses,
Yeah.
their
Which
asses, which makes them again think she's either Owen Collie or a secret man. Um, which is so weird to just not
yeah.
accept that a woman can do that kind of damage. It's not like she's a
It's
tiny petite woman.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that as she's going through their files and reading about them, like we get to know a little bit about what they were like being interrogated, right? Like some
Yeah.
of them tried to fight them right away. Some of them, who I forgot, was it Gabe? They said who was really good at lying to them in all kinds of creative ways and just like kind of feeding into the story. And then there was, shoot, I can't remember her name, the one who outweighted outpatienced the
Oh,
Oankali.
which one was that?
But she's basically almost starved to death. She was like, I refuse. She went on a hunger strike. She refused to
Was it
answer questions. She was
Beatrice?
like, I think so. Let me look. La, la,
I
la,
can't remember
la.
either. But yeah, she almost starved herself because she has the patience of an Owen Collie.
Mm-hmm. So that was
um,
really funny.
we also get what was his name? Derek. Now Derek goes, they hold Lilith down while Derek goes into the pantry because he feels like someone's got to be refilling it from the other side, not realizing that the
Mm-hmm.
ship synthesizes their food on its own. And so when it's open again, they hold her back so that he can climb into it. And then we just never see Derek again.
He just disappears. It closes, and they never bring him back. And Lilith is hoping that they'll bring him back to prove that he didn't die or anything, but they don't.
And she has to open it to show them that he's not in there because they think maybe he's been asphyxiated or just
Mm-hmm.
murdered. And for a while, we don't know what the Ulay did with him. Maybe they did murder him, but we do find out that they just put him back to sleep.
Yeah,
Um,
he
but
wasn't ready.
instead of it showing them that these are aliens and that they need to just chill the fuck out, they just think again Lilith is up to something and that she must have made this happen. And
It gets so ugly.
it gets really ugly.
And it's just, and you can see you can see um why the Oankali are like, listen, you guys are super interested and we're fascinated with you and we can't resist you and we want to like mix our genes with you and make something new, all the stuff, right? But they're like, you're intelligent but you're hierarchical, and this is a problem. And you see it immediately as soon as she starts like introducing new people, and she's doing her best to like to pace it. She uh introduced a couple of women. She, I guess, awakens a couple women, then she awakens a couple men, and then she waits a few days for them to get used to the idea. And she's very patient in answering all their questions. But like the more people that come, the bigger the problems are, and they really quickly start to split off into factions. And you guys
Well,
start to get really afraid for her.
so the whole point was for her to get them used to, oh, not the whole point, but one of the things they wanted from Lilith was for her to get them prepared to see an Owen Collie. But of course they continue to be crazy.
Yeah.
And Nikan shows up and meets Joseph, who like basically passes out, and Nikan drugs him so that he doesn't have to feel like he fainted in front of Lilith.
Right.
And be embarrassed. And then eventually all of the Uloi come.
But
um
they drug their food.
they drug them so that they they give them weed so that everybody can be chill and just relax. And
It's more like a roofie.
while they, yeah, well, they're awake though.
Yeah.
They're awake, and then they're open to the Oankali, and they're all happy until it wears off. And then especially was it Peter? Ugh, I'm mixing up their names now. I think it was Peter who becomes enraged
Mm-hmm.
and tries to kill his
Oh,
Uloi. Was it Peter?
right. I
He
think
tries to
so.
kill his Uloi, who, as a reaction, stings him to death.
Yeah. So they can kill them. They won't because they are anti-violence.
Hmm.
They're
They
not.
didn't. They
They're
didn't
not
want to
violent
kill them,
creatures. They didn't want to
but
kill them at all.
his. But when he attacked his ule, it was just like an instinct to sting him, and it kills him immediately. They said his body tenses up so much that you can hear his bones breaking,
Yeah.
which is a very shitty way to go.
Whew. Forgot what that. There's.
Basically, they gave him extreme tetanus.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God.
Oh, here's a
Terrible.
question from AK. Of all the beings in the universe, why humans? Because humans are intelligent enough and they have a talent, in quotes, for cancer
For
that they
cancer.
haven't seen before.
Which would basically allow them to manipulate. And they said he said I think not Nikonj, Jediah says that basically their talent for cancer, once they Oankali have it, that it allow them to regenerate and to
Regenerate.
also shape themselves in different ways that would make them more human or more like other species. uh
Yeah.
yeah, which is basically the power of transformation, which it's a very interesting way of looking at cancer.
Yeah, I definitely don't look at cancer that way.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the jungle, right? Everybody, welcome to the jungle.
We do not
they
own the rights to that music.
um
Face covered.
they get they get to what they think is essentially the Amazon. Um
Yeah.
and once again, the humans absolutely do not believe Lilith that this could possibly still be the ship because they see a
Mm-hmm.
moon, they see stars, there's a river, there are they're in a jungle, there's fruits growing and animals in
It's
the
in all the
water.
things. Yeah.
So they just refuse to believe that the space can be a ship still. They think that
Mm-hmm.
they're back on Earth and they want to escape. Now, the
They want to
human need
escape.
to escape, I can absolutely understand because up to this point, I don't see why anyone should trust the Oankali.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't take it out on Lilith because she's a captor too. Captive. She is a captive as well.
But she's a captive with the superpowers, and they're not going to believe her.
Yeah, they're not going to
Like,
believe
I
her.
can I ask you a question? Would you what in this position would you have believed Lilith? I don't know the answer to that for myself, and I'm still mulling over it.
I think after seeing the Uloi, I would believe her. Before
Mm-hmm.
seeing the Uloi, I might think that this was some kind of cruel trick by whoever, the Russians or something, whoever
Right.
won this war and put us in captivity. Um, but after seeing the Uloi, I just feel like I would have believed her at that point. I would
Would
have
you
believed
believe that
anything she
you're
said.
on the ship when you were in the training ground?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just after seeing the Ulay, for me, I think that I would believe anything she told me at that point. She could tell me that I was going to grow 2 more legs, and I'd be like, that sounds plausible.
When is that happening?
Yeah. I mean, because it's like seeing them based off how people's reactions are to them, it's horrifying, and you are forced to see them as aliens. Like you have
Mm-hmm.
no choice anymore. Like those are
Yeah.
aliens because they're as alien as they could be. And knowing
And
seeing that,
ugly.
yeah, they're ugly, they're these talking tentacled humanoid beings that keep drugging you, and
Giving you the
yeah,
best sex of your life.
without you wanting it. And I think that I after that I would just literally believe anything Lilith told me because that would blow my mind. Before
Yeah.
that, maybe I would think she was an agent and trying to trick me, and maybe I would try to escape with the others, but after seeing that, I'd believe it. Even being in
Mm-hmm.
the jungle, I'd be like, well, this is just some other alien shit that I don't understand.
Oh no! Sorry, I was just there. I just want to mention real quick that this is the second time I've listened to slash read the book, and there is just so much foreshadowing from the like. It's one of those books that is just so much richer on the second read
Mm,
because I'm just picking up stuff. I'm like, oh my god! Especially, we'll get to that. I don't know if you want to spoil the ending.
I think we
Yeah.
should because I mean, if you're watching
We're
this,
gonna, yeah, well, because
so
AK said she hasn't finished reading, but she's listening to the book.
okay. Well, we're gonna spoil it
We're gonna spoil it, so we're gonna let you know that we're gonna spoil it. Do the spoiler
without a
countdown,
doubt.
Tanya. Do your spoiler countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoiler time.
Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers.
Welcome to the jungle. Everyone sneaks away. They want to build a raft or a boat or something and get
To
to
find the boundaries of
safety.
this place.
You know, Nakanja's just like they're just gonna hit the wall, and they don't believe that because this training room is unnaturally huge.
It reminds me of the space in not To Kill a Mockingbird, Mockingjay. What is that? Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. Oh, right.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
The
It's
dome.
so huge. Yeah, the dome. It's so huge that you can't fathom that there's an end to it. But in this case,
Hmm.
there simply is. And as much as Lilith tells them there is no escape, they don't believe her. And it gets so bad that they they capture Lilith unawares, beat her
Hmm.
ass. She wakes up and everyone is gone. Eventually, find out that they've murdered Joseph. The reason Kurt has murdered Joseph,
Kurt
the ex
murdered
cop.
Joseph, and it ends up coming back to the point where Nikanj first comes into the room, and Lilith is like, "We need to protect him. Can you make him like me? Can you exempt him from all these things?" And he was like, "No, but you know what? I can help him heal faster," and that ends up being his
That ends up
downfall.
being Joseph's downfall because Kurt, after they beat his ass, they see him healing too fast. And so they no longer believe he's human either. And it doesn't
Hmm.
help that he was paired up with Lilith, who they don't believe is human. And
Hmm.
so Kurt chops him up with an axe while everybody watches. Um, that part, the first time I read it, I was devastated
Me too. I couldn't
because
believe it.
he just seemed like such a good guy. I'm like, of course we'll keep him. But I learned nothing from George R. R. Martin,
I was
clearly.
just about to say they
I
Georged
learned
him.
nothing. Yeah, they Georged him. So he's killed and
And so brutally. Just like, can you
so
imagine? Just
brutally.
like, just to keep healing. It reminds me of like some of the scenes from X-Men where Wolverine is like exposing himself to something, and he just like his body keeps tearing apart from the adamantium skeleton, and then he keeps regenerating. Ugh.
Have you ever seen The Old Guard, the movie?
What's that about?
It's about these immortal warriors um, who essentially try to save people without giving away that they're immortal.
Hmm.
Um, and every time they save someone, they essentially change the course of history because people go on to do like people who would have been killed go on to do really great things. But
Hmm.
there's a character who this it's not really spoiler as far as like the plot, but there's a character who they think people think is a witch because they've been around for ages. So
Hmm.
it's a part where they think that she's a witch, and so they put her in an iron cage and drown her. And so for 500 years, she wakes up, drowns to death, wakes up again, drowns to death, and just does this over and over and over for 500 years.
Oh, I was like, that reminds me of the Gilded Ones.
Yes, the Gilded Ones.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Gilded
Go
Ones.
back and
Yeah,
find the Gilded Ones. We've covered that. And the Gilded
yeah,
Ones, the Alaki get murdered over and over and over
yeah.
to
And I
bleed them for
forgot what her name
gold,
was. Hmm.
to bleed
But
them
they
for
put her in a lake, and she's terrified of water.
not Katya.
Oh,
What's her name?
I don't remember.
I can't remember her name. She's in the second book though. Um, yeah, they put her in a lake and they drown her, thinking that'll be her final death, and it's not. But
She just keeps
if you
drowning.
haven't read it, go read it and then check out our stream about it because we covered it. It's really
Mhm.
good.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, Joseph's dead. Kurt is put back to sleep permanently,
That
and
motherfucker.
that motherfucker, they should have killed his ass, but whatever. I am opposed to the death penalty, but maybe street justice should have got him. Put him in a room with Lilith, let her work out the punishment.
Uh,
um, and Lilith, Nikanj gets like very badly injured.
This is the part where you see the Ule they're like come to fight.
Oh wait, I'm gonna post a comment really quickly.
Hmm.
Any species from any planet with as many apex predators as Earth would have a propensity for violence. Yeah. I mean, the ability to perceive threat and react is what keeps you alive.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, you guys are like the only humans. Like, be nice to each other.
You'd think.
And the part of it is that they can't kill the Uloi, so they take it out on each other instead. They take it out on Lilith because they know they can
Hmm.
kill her. So they attack some of the Uloi. One of them gets like an axe to the chest, but heals and is like, I'll heal. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Um, a few of them get murdered by the Oankali because this is the first time they've had to really kill anyone because they didn't
Hmm.
want to kill anyone.
And
Um,
it's acting as a reflex. Now it's self defense, and they can't help it.
and it's, I mean, at this point, there's like a full on battle. There's a full on battle going on. And Nikanj gets cut so badly that he almost loses his sensory arm. He asks Lilith to help him heal. She has to get naked, and he puts his tentacles into different parts of her body, like through her skin.
Hmm.
And she basically just lays down with him until he heals. And I think it's whatever her genetic makeup, maybe it's her talent for
The
cancer
cancer, yeah.
that helps him regenerate in a way that he wouldn't have been able to.
Hmm.
This, of course, makes the people continue to see Lilith as like just this
Yeah.
monster. Like,
I mean, if they weren't sure about her before, they absolutely now are convinced that she is the enemy.
yeah,
Or and she's not an enemy, a traitor to her species. Like
right,
how is she choosing them over him?
right,
But they
because
just
she's
murdered her lover.
on the battle. In the battle, she is on the Uloi side, and they see this.
Yeah.
She's not doing anything, but she's standing with the Uloi against other humans, and the Ulai really set her up. I mean, they really, other than curing her cancer, they have really done her no favors.
No, they haven't.
So the
It's
rest of
terrible.
the,
It's really, I was gonna
huh?
say, it's just really terrible because as intelligent as they think they are, and as much and all the things that they've studied in their 200 years, and who knows if they were watching humans long before that, because we don't know if that's the case.
Right.
But in all this time, they just haven't really nailed the nuances of human interaction and socialization, and
No, not
understood
at
that
all.
by singling somebody out, you are establishing a hierarchy,
Right.
right? Like, how are you're complaining about the fact that these creatures are hierarchical, but by saying this is the one that you need to listen to, you've done it yourself.
This is from Jake. I'm not suggesting their behavior is reasonable. This is talking about the humans killing other
Mhm.
people. I was responding to AK calling humans violent. We are, but there's reasons. Yeah, definitely. It's just some people are horrible. So the other people get sent to Earth where they probably feel they're free. Eventually, the repulsion wears off and they can start coupling up again, but they can't have children on their own without an Ulay,
Nope.
um, which is, you know, adulthood rights is the next book, right?
Adulthood rights.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
read that. We'll get more into, they'll get more into that in
Yeah. We
adulthood
haven't
rights.
decided if we're going to cover the next two books, but we probably will just space it out.
Yeah. Um, so at the
I think
end,
it's really good too.
we find out that Lilith is pregnant. They saved some of Joe's genes and used it to impregnate Lilith so that they could at least have a baby together. And the problem
Yeah.
is Lilith didn't consent to being impregnated. The other problem is this child will not be fully human. It's going to be a human Oankali hybrid because the Oankali's plan,
Yeah.
even though they don't consider it wiping out humanity, it is. There will be no more actual humans once Lilith and that generation dies off. They'll all be these Oankali blends who you don't know what to expect. What is that even? What is it going to look like? What is that even going to mean?
Hmm.
And Lilith is going to be the first mother of this with its siblings. It will be siblings with Nakanja's children with his mates. Its mates.
Hmm.
See, I did it again.
It's me.
Called
Yeah.
Nakanja him.
It's me. Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
Go ahead. Who are you gonna say?
Yeah, I think it's what's I what, so the oncology, just like any other species, wants to survive, right? It
Hmm.
wants to survive. They want to keep changing. They want to keep adapting. And what we find out in the later books is that they're going to populate the earth, but then they're going to leave it because they're basically sucking up all the resources that are left to go
Hmm.
on and move on to be this completely, utterly alien species. There are no humans left. And the people who grasp this, the factions who are anti-Lilith, they understand this on a very real level.
Hmm.
And they don't want to be destroyed. Like, for them, they'd rather die out than survive as an alien hybrid species.
Yeah, and I understand
Yeah,
that
like, I understand. um
because now we're talking not just consent, but also eugenics. They're pulling out all of the traits that they find flawed.
mhm.
I mean, it's one thing to alter your genes so that you won't get cancer, right?
Yeah.
It's another thing to just be altering everything that makes you human. Because who knows what else they'll alter?
Hmm.
Are they going to
In
take
order for
away?
the captor, the kidnapping species to survive. And that's really what it's about. They talk about it's all about where their name Oankali means trade, it means exchange, but it really means trade and exchange in order to give them the ability to adapt and live on, um, beyond what would be normal for them. And by the time they meet humans, it's just that they haven't met anybody, another species that they can successfully do that with to the degree that they can with humans.
Right. But again, the humans are left. Their options, ugh, see, freedom or death. Some people take that very seriously. That's a comment from Jake. I
Yeah,
was
you
gonna
know how they
say,
make names too.
Lilith, mother of monsters.
Hmm.
Yeah, go read your Bibles, guys. There's a lot of cool stories in there. Somebody should like. Never mind. Whatever. We'll talk about that off
Should
camera.
we do it on a 30 Tuesdays?
The Bible. I actually would love to do a Bible stories 30 Tuesdays. I think because there really are some great stories in there.
Yeah,
We focus so much on like this is a sin instead of like, wow, this story is kind of badass.
yeah.
Uh, um, what was I saying? Yeah. So we have eugenics, and that's obviously a slippery slope. Like, okay, we want to get rid of cancer, but then what else are they going to find unsavory in humans
Hmm.
that changes people? Yeah, it's a very slippery slope though, and it
Yeah,
can.
because they're basically eliminating some of the most basic needs. But I think that what we find out, like, the need for human connection and the need to be touched in these things. But we find out some of, how do you pronounce the last book?
I
Imago.
I don't know.
Imago.
I was gonna
That
ask
that
you.
one is my favorite. That one is my favorite, and you find out that, like, no matter what, the humanity is going to kind of like come to the forefront. They can't really breed it out successfully. Uh, the
Yeah,
quest to explore and to try new things, and uh, yeah, yeah. Ugh, all the books are so good. AK,
they are.
absolutely move it up your list. I was telling Tanya that I have it. I have the trilogy. Tanya gave me the trilogy for, like, as a random gift because she's my book bae, and
I don't
I
even remember doing that, but hey,
yeah,
I'm
you just
glad I
sent it to me
did.
one day, and I was just like,
I
ooh,
probably read it and was like, "Oh my god, Nikki needs this," which is usually how I end up randomly sending you books.
okay. Right. And the way that it's set up in Kindle is that I got to the end of the first book and I didn't realize that oh, like, Joseph was dead and they were going back to, and I was just like, ah, and then suddenly it was a different, all these different names, and I was like, oh, right, new book. And then I just, I used that and went through all three.
Hold on, I'm gonna
They're
pull
such a
it
good
up
read.
and read the last line
Yes.
because I have the book as just like one piece trilogy as well instead
Hmm.
of the individual books. The last line.
Which I will get. I will get those eventually. I just don't have any room on my bookshelf.
I know. I do want to get hard copies of it too. And I also don't have room on my bookshelf. I would show you what it looks like over there, but the internet doesn't need to see how disastrous my bookshelf is. um, the very last line is, she let Nikanj lead her into the dark forest and to one of the concealed dry exits. And that's it. It just stops there. She finds out she's pregnant, and then you get that line.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to keep an eye on my cat. She did some wild shit this morning. I haven't yet forgiven her for it.
Here's a comment. It doesn't ultimately sound like they wanted to
Yeah.
save humanity. It sounds like they wanted to save themselves. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
That's what it
self-preservation
is.
is one of our biggest traits. And
Strongest drive.
I I feel them. I feel them. I would not want to have alien babies. Certainly not just finding out I'm pregnant because you told me you put a baby in me.
Yeah, and then
Like
you have to
that,
go
what
through
a
the whole
violation that
gestation
is.
period of just not knowing what your baby is
What
gonna
it's
look
gonna
like.
be. Is it
And it's
gonna
like not
be a
even like what it's
tentacled
gonna be.
monster?
Right. And then how is it gonna be accepted or not accepted or rejected by everybody else? You
Including
know?
yourself, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about the repulsion she felt at seeing Jediah for the first time,
Mhm.
what's going to happen if she gives birth to a tentacled baby? We do get into that stuff in the next book, but
Yeah, the next
before
couple.
then, yeah, before then, she doesn't know what she's going to have. And she didn't ask for this, they just did it to her. Yeah, this is largely about eugenics and consent. And I think we're supposed to, I don't think we're supposed to hate Theo and Kali at all. Um, but I found myself really disgusted by them.
Yeah, it's just like, maybe a story about how self-preservation at all costs leads to ultimately to destruction because they're destroying like the humans destroy it's like the humans destroyed themselves and they took advantage of a species that was dying out in order to further their own lines.
I think when I first read it, I felt like, oh my God, you stupid humans, just listen to what they're saying. They're gonna save you, and
Mm,
they've saved you from the earth you destroyed. They've, brought it back to life, and they're gonna send you there. And then I as I had time to really think about it, because you get
mhm.
caught up in the excitement of reading the story.
Yeah, yeah,
As I started reading about it, I was like, this is kind of fucked up.
yeah. That's how I felt. Like that's what I'm saying. Like on the second read, it's just like it's much more menacing. And you're like, oh wait, you told me like from the very beginning, you're saying that your goal is to wipe us out. And now you found this beautiful cancer thing that's gonna help you breed with us and make you more like us and be able to transform in all these ways to make us more acceptable to each other.
Mhm.
And like, ah man, only to have to leave the planet anyway.
Yeah. Damn, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
What a great read, though.
Just letting it sink in, just like, wow, the levels of fuckery on this book and the stuff that doesn't sink in until you actually sit with it. But yeah, absolutely a great read, super compelling. It's very fast too.
Yeah, it is. I
Very
think
fast. Like
the
even
audiobook is like 8 hours.
yeah. And it's like even the parts that are like troubling and disturbing, it's like you want to get through and you want to know what's next. You want to know what happens. Like you're cheering for Lilith, and here she is, just like, like no matter what happens, like she is gonna be the enemy of the people.
Hmm.
And
I
you
read
can't
all
help but
three
feel
back
bad
to
for
back.
her. Yeah, me
Like
too.
immediately, I just kept going.
So
We
good.
are over an hour, so we should
We started a little
probably.
late.
We did start a little late, but no, but we've been on over an
Oh
hour.
yeah, Celtics game is coming on. Huh?
Yeah, the Celtics game is coming on, so we're gonna go. Um, thank you all for joining us as usual.
As usual.
You can
We
find us
appreciate
in
your
the
time.
comments. You'll see our social media, not in the comments, I'm sorry, in our show notes. You'll see us, our social media links and all of that. But if you want to watch past episodes or listen to past episodes, you can go to thousandeyespodcast.com and you'll find them there. If you go to just our YouTube page, A Thousand Eyes and One Podcast, you'll see playlists with our different series, 30 Tuesdays, um, Wine on an Empty Stomach. We have some House of the Dragon and Wheel of Time.
I feel like it's time for
Um,
me to start my rewatch of that.
Wheel of Time, yeah, I want to
Mhm.
rewatch that really soon. We made it through an episode with no Sanderson references. So sorry
I
to
caught
that big.
one.
What did you?
I no, I was thinking when we were talking about our bookshelf, I was thinking about how I want to order all the Sanderson books. I just said I'm not going to disrespect them and putting them on the floor, and everything else on my bookshelf has earned its place.
Hmm.
Therefore, I cannot have the hard copies yet.
My bookshelf is a full bookshelf with two stacks of books next to it, tall
Mm,
stacks, like taller than my kids, and stacks of books in front of it. Then there's the shelf that used to be for like DVDs and stuff on my TV stand is all books. Then I have some lined up here, and I have more in my bedroom, which has I have a bookshelf bed because I needed
mhm.
a place to put more books, especially the ones I'm going to read after bed. So instead of nightstands, I have a bookshelf bed.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I probably have to hold off on getting all of the Sanderson books.
yeah. We will be
And
doing one for an upcoming book club, though. We're going to do Trust of the Emerald Sea. I'm not
yes,
sure when yet.
that was a fun one. Um,
And oh, and we have a 30 Tuesdays coming up. Everything, everywhere, all at once
yes, go
on
watch if you haven't. Please go watch Everything
Tuesday.
Everywhere
Is
All
it
at Once.
the 16th? There'll be a flyer on socials later today
I can tell you. Hold on one
for tomorrow.
second. Yes, the 16th, 9 p.m. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. We're going to
Can't
get
wait.
into that wonderful movie. And if you haven't watched it, please go watch it. AK, sorry to your bingo card. We didn't do any Stormlight references this time, but we did get to talk about a bunch of other media. So,
Hmm.
you know, there were still some other things. But yeah, check us out. Come find us. And in the meantime, enjoy your Sunday and go Celtics.
Go Celtics.
Bye bye.
Bye.